Good morning, Cincinnati, and welcome into the final regular season episode of the Bearcat Brunch, brought to you by our wonderful sponsors at Royal Links Golf Tours. The weather was unseasonably warm this weekend, so maybe you got out and had a chance to hit the links. But if you didn't, and have always wanted to been going, and have always wanted to go to Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales, Royal Links Golf Tours is your golf tour specialist, offering unforgettable trips that are custom itineraries. They're immersive, cultural, and country experiences that will surprise and delight you both on and off the course. Royal Links Golf Tours is owned by former Bearcat quarterback Hayden Moore and his partner, UC alum Jeff Bartholomew. So if you'd like to play St. Andrews or enjoy that perfect pint of Guinness in Ireland, visit their website at royallinksgolftours.com or call them directly at 770-331-1525. And with that, we are back again to unfortunately recap the Bearcats' 27-24 loss in the home finale, snapping the second longest home winning streak in the nation, keeping the Bearcats out of the AAC conference title game. Would have been a fourth consecutive trip. As always, I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Jeff Howell. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, Dave.
Good morning, Alex, in the chat. I hope we have a vigorous and vociferous chat today. And as always, as we do every week, I kick it to you for your first main impression of how you digested the Bearcats' close loss.
I thought it was kind of a weird game a little bit. Obviously, you're gonna have that whenever your starting quarterback is someone different all the way at the very end of the season when everybody's kind of locked in with one guy. I thought Evan did. I mean, he doesn't have any special stat that you're going to look at and think that it's fantastic, but at the end of the day, the team was in a position to win. They didn't get the stops they needed. They didn't make the extra plays that they needed to make on offense to have that happen, and it slipped away from them at the end.
It sure did. I mean, my biggest frustration lies in the fact that Tulane came in and did exactly what I thought they would do. And so if they did exactly what I thought they'd do, I hope that they did exactly what the coaching staff thought they would do, which was give the ball to Tajay Spears time after time after time. He finished with 35 carries for 181 yards. They have two pretty good backup running backs who didn't even see the field. They were just like, we don't care. This is our guy. We're going to ride him. He's the one that is our premier player. And if we're going to win this game, it's going to be on his back. And that's exactly what they did. It's also the second loss this year where, as you said, the D was in a position to get a stop. Now, it might not have ended the game. In this case, there were still 6 minutes left. But just like in the Central Florida game, Bearcats not great offensively, somehow scratch and claw their way to a lead late in the fourth quarter, and the defense cannot get it done.
And it wasn't good.
No, go ahead.
I would just say, like, when the defense wasn't able to stop them there in the fourth quarter, I think the more frustrating part there was they flipped their script of what they were doing the entire game and just threw it over our heads.
Yeah, but that happens when you've been so successful running the ball.
Yeah.
And the thought is, well, why would they stop giving the ball to Tajay Spears? He's done whatever he's wanted. And so now a good offensive coordinator goes, okay, let's see what we can maybe run something we haven't showed them yet. They're expecting one thing, and we give them something else. But, I mean, the run defense against premier the premier running backs, the premier running offenses that they have faced this year has not been good. The numbers are good overall, but there was just, no push up front, overran plays. There was poor gap discipline, poor tackling, couldn't get off blocks. Just overall extremely poor run defense.
We were missing,
you could point
Corleone and Perry
for sure, but you're missing dudes, and we've been missing dudes along the defensive line all year. But they didn't do anything special. They didn't run any gadget plays. They didn't fool you. They lined up and said, "We are going to do this because this is what we do. Stop it."
And we couldn't.
And whether it was a personnel issue, adjustment issue, a scheme issue, it didn't matter. Like, it's across the board. I mean, everybody is culpable when you lose a game. It's I do not try to single out any one person, even one particular unit. But like, if you know what they're going to do, and they're able to do it with that level of success. It didn't matter that Michael Pratt was not very good, not very accurate. I mean, he made a couple really good throws, obviously, on that one back-to-back throws on that drive. But again, like on the first one, the receiver ran all the way across the field, and he just had plenty of time to wait for him to clear and become open. And the whole havoc and tackles for loss and pass rush has really dropped in league play. You only had 1 sack yesterday, 3 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. So they're just not getting to the quarterback as much as they were earlier in the year. They're not generating turnovers. You had 9 and 8 conference games, and 4 of them were against Temple. So they're just not, defensively not as good, and that's understandable. Like, you lost a lot of really good players. You've lost a lot of key players through injury. But if this is going to be your calling card, if this is going to be your bread and butter, you can't just at home in a game of this magnitude, you can't just let the other team come in and do exactly what they want and exactly what you
mouth repeatedly with,
and exactly what you knew they were going to do. That's the thing. It's like, come on.
I don't know if you want to pop up the screen down there. I mean, it's just like you look at this and you think like maybe that's a game that you win.
For sure. I mean, we'll get to it, when we talk offense, but the defense just wasn't. It's weird. They hold them 4 for 13 on third down, and I think it was 0 for 4 in the second half. I think they were 4 for 9 in the first half. But it felt just like it was too many, whether it was third down or second down, too many short conversions, too many 2nd and 5, 2nd and 3s. Tajay Spears was always getting something. He had no carries for negative yards. Even when it felt like you had him stopped, he was twisting and falling for 3.
That was a comment that I made while watching the game was like, the dude never went down on first contact backwards or I don't know what's going on with my light here. He never went down like backwards. He never went like straight down. It was always at least the length of his body forward.
Yeah.
And when you're letting somebody, I mean, what did he average there carry wise?
It's like 5 yards a carry.
So 5.2. Like,
yeah.
If you can just hand the ball off to somebody that can fall forward on every play, get 5.2 yards a carry if you want to be perfectly accurate, and you'll never even see a third down, theoretically.
No, I mean, they had 4 of them in the entire second half. They went 0 for 4 and 0 for 1 on fourth down. But, like, they didn't have many because it was always second. They were converting on second down a lot of the time, clearly. But, it was also kind of a microcosm of the entire season rolled into one game in the sense of, like, against UCF, couldn't really stop the run when it mattered. We still have these crucial errors. You have a roughing the punter, which I'm not sure why you're even attempting to block that punt.
Thank you.
on the first drive of the game, or after you go 3 and out and you punt or whatever it was, and then you hold them to a 3 and out, like just take the ball. You held them, take the ball. You have the pass interference in the end zone on 4th down, which I kind of understand the gripe of maybe it was uncatchable, maybe it wasn't. But Byron Threats just shoved the guy right in the chest, right in front of the official.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. You can dispute whether it was catchable, but like you can't do that right in front of the back judge, standing right next to the goal post. Just chuck a guy running through the middle of the end zone and not think they're going to call it.
Especially when the pass comes right over his head, regardless.
It's to that guy. It wasn't to another receiver, and you were, yes, it was to him. And then you have the interception that was an awful decision, an awful throw, and in your territory then. So you're giving a team that that you've done pretty well against defensively to that point. Like, you just can't make those types of errors and think that you're going to beat good teams.
And Tulane is a good team. Like, I mean, hats off to them. Like, we do it on whenever we lose. We're not making excuses or saying that like they lucked into a win in any way, shape, or form. Like they came in and for what it's worth took the crown off the king.
No, their best players played great games. I mean, obviously we've talked about Tajay Spears, but defensively on the preview show, talked about their linebackers, talked about Dorian Williams, talked about Nick Anderson. 24 total tackles and an interception. Like, I mean, those are...
Is one of them number 12, whoever the guy was that made the... I don't know if it was our second to last drive or our last drive made the play
on Wiley on the internet. Yeah. No, that was DJ Douglas. He had 1 tackle and 1 pass breakup, and that was a pretty big pass breakup.
Because I think that goes for a pretty long way.
Even if it just goes right there. I mean, it was 3rd down, and
they're down at 15 or something.
Yeah. So no, I mean, their top 3, what I would consider their top 3 players, played great games. I'd throw Darius Hodge in there too, their other linebacker. 4 total tackles, but had 2 QB hits and seemed to be, around the ball a lot. But you just defensively, you can't. And I know Arquan Bush was the victim there, and not explaining away any of it, but I think they hid that a lot of the season. He's had pretty bad foot-toe issues for several years, and just doesn't have the long speed to truly be an outside guy, in my opinion.
The catch-up speed.
They were able to hide it in most of the season and get away with it, even against the other good passing teams. But eventually you're going to get got, you're going to get exposed, and he did. And it's unfortunate that happens, but to me, it all kind of rolls into run game and not being able to get to the quarterback when they did throw. I mean, they did get some hits on him a few times, and he was able to throw, dump the ball off. But even on some of those, like those plays, there was poor tackling. Like I remember one where he's getting drilled and slings it off to Lawrence Key on the Lawrence Key's on the far sideline, and we've got him for like a 4-yard loss, and he breaks a tackle and it turns into an 8-yard gain.
Yeah, I mean they made the plays like Doug over here. I think it's Doug Smith over there. In the chat, like they made plays at the times that they needed plays, and we had very unfortunate bad plays when we needed something to spark, either a stop there with 6 minutes to go or whatever it was. Probably then you're looking at, you get the ball back with like 5 minutes if you make get them on a 3 and out there, and really like the way that they were doing things, they didn't go 3 and out a lot like we normally see them go. Like there were not a lot of like short drives. I think Justin Williams tweeted and said that this was the first time, I'm talking about UC's offense here, this is the first time that UC's offense has had 3 drives of 10 plus plays in one game all season.
Right.
Now some of that comes to the fact that like Ryan Montgomery was, I saw people saying like the Ryan Montgomery game Um, eh,
I mean, they had more of it. They converted them more of their available yards than Tulane did. And that was only by like 2%. But they had two, especially in the second half, two long touchdown drives. But um,
they didn't do enough of the things when they needed to be done.
no, not nearly enough. And I guess we can flip over to the offense now and definitely start with Monty and Chuck, 25 for 152. Just over 6 yards a carry. I mean, that's the type of running back production that we've been asking for, that we've been hoping. I mean, it was not buoyed. I mean, Chuck had a 35-yard run, but it was not like it was a 70-yard run, a 30-yard run, and then 23 carries for 50 yards.
I mean, Montgomery's longest run was 17 yards.
Yeah, it was a consistent, good running attack. Evan added in with 18 rushes for 83 yards. The EPA per rush was 92nd percentile, which is very, very strong for anybody, and especially the way that they've been running the ball. It's fantastic, and it's exactly what they needed in this game. The problem is that, I mean, I have to get into it, is like Evan was just not nearly good enough, and certainly not good enough for a starting caliber quarterback. 10 for 26 for 102 yards. If you have an average passing game, whether it's him or Ben, it's hard for me to see them losing.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of what they did running wise, like, was changed or was helped by the fact that Evan can also run.
100%, I'm sure it is, but 26 throws is the number that I think you want to see from this type of an offense.
But you can't have 10 completions.
Him running the ball is how you make up for not throwing the ball 35 times. And I talked about on Wednesday night, at least 10 plus runs for him, and it turned into 18. Obviously, not all 18 were designed Evan Prater run plays, but here's two numbers that I looked at to kind of compare to the rest of the conference season. So they averaged 4.88 yards per play, which is 23rd percentile, which is not good. It was not the worst of the year. I think it was third worst in conference play. But what that shows me is how important that still having a level of passing game is to the overall offensive attack, because the running game was great. It was the best it's been against a really good defense as well.
Yeah.
And yet you still only average 4.88 yards per play. And then the super concerning number is the 3.78 yards per dropback, which was by far the lowest of the season. And in some cases, half of what most games were. Most games were well into the sevens. So to go half of that shows me, and the stats show it too, Will Pauling's catch on the sideline of 21 yards was the longest completion of the game. The next longest was 13 yards. So there was no threat of them throwing the ball down the field at all.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't have really an answer.
I'm okay with if you're going to complete 17, 18, 19 passes. If you're not going to throw the ball down the field for whatever reason you want, then you cannot be completing 30-something, 40-something percent.
If he doesn't have the arm to throw it down the field like that,
that's another thing. That was my first. That's my first note about the passing in general. Alarming at the lack of power behind throws.
Which is odd because there were a couple throws that were absolute darts.
His last one to Tyler Scott was the best throw he had all game.
Yeah, and then the one to Pauling, I thought he had a little bit on. But outside of that, and I was talking to his high school quarterback coach over the weekend, and he said it appears that his throwing motion has changed and gotten more wind up
more loop
than it was when he was in high school. he unfortunately he wasn't able to like really watch the game much because he's still
Right.
he's an OC at his height, and they played last night. So it I don't know. There's a lot of concerning things. I've seen a lot of people that are like, oh, you can't be in a program 3 years and not have like a level of improvement. Hold on a second.
I mean, the two throws to Trey Tucker on screens that were bounced are concerning to me, because like that's a play where you know automatically what you're doing, and
Yeah.
you're not reading anything. You are catching the ball, turning, and you're firing it chest high, a little bit to the inside to give him an opportunity to catch it on the move and run up the field. And Trey is having to stand flat-footed, waiting for the ball to get there,
Yes.
bending down, and it bounces to him twice.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the passes, especially in the first half, were floated. The interception was floated, and when you float balls, they get batted up in the air.
And it was behind him.
It was into three guys around him too. I mean, there was a whole mess of things going on there. But just in general, like you had floating passes, late passes. He had Tyler Scott over the middle on one that was late that Tyler got hit on that wasn't able to catch. Didn't give his guys chances to run. I thought at times he hung in the pocket well.
Yeah.
But almost took that to an extreme where it's like, nothing's there. Use your legs. Go get 3, 4, 5 yards.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have an internal clock. You have to have an awareness that, yes, I'm trying to make something happen. Yes, we have good receivers who are working to get open. But there were plays like he's floating towards the sideline or floating in the pocket where I'm just like, dude, it's not there. Just go get something. Go try to make a play. And he just didn't do that. And it's frustrating because you lose a 3-point game and you don't attack down the field, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I mean, those plays take longer to develop if you're not confident in your pass protection, which I thought until the very, very end actually did a pretty darn good job.
He had pretty clean pockets the whole game.
So if you're not going to be this explosive vertical passing attack that you are with Ben Bryant, and you're only going to have 26 attempts. Obviously, he had more dropbacks. Some turned into scrambles, things of that nature. But like, you're going to not throw the ball as much because your running backs get 25 carries and he runs the ball for 18. You just can't be 10 for 26, man. Like, there's no other way I can say it. Like, your passing game is set up to be a plus 55%, 60%. Really good quarterback in that type of a format is a 65, 70% passer.
I mean, I said it, I think on PTP, maybe, that you didn't need Evan to come out and do anything extreme or special. He just had to do enough. Just really the bare minimum of what you would expect in a situation like this of a kid that's getting his first start in probably the biggest game of the season at this point. I mean, it was. And you just need him to kind of take care of business, take care of the ball. Unfortunately, he had the one turnover, and then he kind of came back from that because then they ended up taking the lead. But that one little like additional possession for Tulane really ended up kind of killing him. But he's I don't know. I think his ceiling might be there. It does worry me that he's been in the program this long. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's had 3 years. I understand he's kind of been, he's been there. He's been behind Desmond Ridder. Obviously he was. I don't know what the only kind of theories I can come up with in my head are: one, he's behind Desmond Ridder. He knows he's not bumping him out. Two, then Ben Bryant comes in and wins the job, and now he's still in a backup role, and he's just not getting the reps with the ones to get him familiar with it, and he's not really seeing a lot of like mop up time during the season. Now, I don't know what kind of effect that has truly on the development. Like at some point, you've got to be able to put in, and I'm not calling into question his work ethic at all. Like I just don't know where the disconnect is, that he's not seemingly on the same page as some of the guys on the field. And then, like you said, like when you're making throws out a designed throw into the flat, and you're throwing a 50-mile-an-hour sinker,
right? Like
that's not gonna get it done.
I think Natalie asked to what degree are those things first game jitters. I mean, I'm sure part of it. I mean, it's an experience factor. It's not even necessarily as much of a first start big game moment type thing. It's just I don't have that many reps under my belt. I haven't seen as many things as other players have seen. The concern to me is that some of the things that I saw should have nothing to do with first game jitters or first start jitters or the magnitude of the moment. To me, they are that the idea that this was like truly a two-man race does not hold any water to me anymore. That this is truly more of like a starter and a true backup situation. And that, like, from the throwing standpoint, to miss on some of the throws that he missed on, it tells me that whether it's him not being able to get to a certain level, whether it's the coaches not being able to get him to a certain level, just tells me that he is still much, much more of a runner athlete who can play the position versus what I think a lot of teams are going to, which is a quarterback who has running escapability. That is not necessarily a runner, but is a movable piece that can get you yard, like a Michael Pratt. I'm not going to like Michael Pratt's not the greatest thing ever, but several times they put trips to one side, a tight end to the other, and just straight ran him off that edge for 7, 8, 9 yards. He has escapability. He's a movable piece. You can half roll him. You can bootleg him. You can do different things to move the pocket, to change launch angles, to change eye angles. Like, he's not Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, but like that's the thing that I think college quarterbacks are going to more so than anything, is a passing quarterback who has movement skills, who can get himself out of trouble, who has to be accounted for, in the run game to some extent. And I just feel like in watching that and what we've seen leading up to the year and what we've seen in the limited amount of action that Evan's gotten, is that he is still a much more athlete runner than
quarterback runner. I was surprised, and maybe I'm wrong on this, so you can correct me if you saw it differently. I was actually kind of surprised that there weren't more. It seemed like there was a lot more of like straight dropbacks, just like not necessarily calling a lot of like rollouts, not moving him outside of the pocket to give him, because it seemed like when on some of those plays, like for instance like the Will Pauling throw, which was just a outstanding catch. I mean, you're not going to see a better one, I don't think, getting your foot in on something like that. I mean, he extended that play 12, 13 seconds. It seemed like he was back there. I was just surprised. I thought there would be more, a more concerted effort to get him outside the pocket. I agree. I think he looked more comfortable on those throws when he was moving than he did on the ones where he was 2-3 step drop. I mean, obviously, like we've hit on the ones where he threw them in the dirt and the ones where he floated them in, and I feel like those throws all came from a pure like Ben Bryant-esque straight drop back, because we all know like Ben wasn't he wasn't going to take off running for 12, 13, 14 yards. That wasn't going to happen with him. And I just feel like maybe, and obviously, they had a week to truly put in a different style of game plan, and we talked about it like on the show last week. There's just not going to be a wholesale change in the way things are done, and yeah, they put some things in for Evan. I just thought there would be more.
Yeah, that's I did too. I mean, I thought those were ways that they could help him with reads. Like when you get outside the pocket and you can see, like, here's my read. If it's not there, just go. And I think that's some of my frustration is that in those opportunities, he tried to be quarterback where I'm like, just be athlete.
Yeah.
Like, your first read's not there. Dude, just be athlete. Go get whatever you can get. And it tells me that those type of rollouts, those type of outside the pocket plays just aren't in the playbook.
Yeah, they're just
it's not part of what they do, because I thought that would make sense to do design things, not where things break down and he has to go do that because that's on his own. But like misdirection stuff, we didn't see any pop passes or handoffs or shovels or to Trey Tucker or anybody else. Like we didn't fake anything one way, roll Evan out the other way to hit a tight end. I thought he was like the slit plays that they try to run with Wiley and they tried to run it with Trey too. They were either read well or he was late on it. Like, and some of those times I don't love that play because I feel like they get too close to each other and it's easy to just have one guy basically guard two. And I thought that happened a couple times. I think one time with Trey especially, they felt like they were too close, and Evan ended up cutting it up and running it for 3, 4, 5 yards, something like that. But it's unfortunate. There's only so much you can do in a week. Like you said, you're not going to revamp everything, and you have a pretty distinct difference in your styles of quarterback. So you're not going to have this expansive, wild playbook to where if your one quarterback can't play, then we have all of this other stuff at our disposal. Because you're not going to have time to work it all. Like you can only run stuff that you have worked on during the season. So you're not going to have like Ben Bryant playbook and Evan Prater playbook, because how are you going to work all that stuff?
Well, and some of that comes into what we discussed way back at the beginning of the season when the initial Ben Bryant hate was out there that just, I don't know, seemingly festered all year. And people thought we were just in here, talking to defend him, purely to defend him. And you said that you would not be against kind of a little Evan Prater package that would get him on the field in some different scenarios, with some different plays that he could run. Maybe, hey, look, the next 2 series are going to be yours. I don't know if had those things happened, maybe we saw on Friday why that wasn't put together that way, because it's seemingly a crapshoot if that even would have been successful during the season. You can look back and say, well, if you did that and gave him some experience, that maybe some of these things wouldn't have happened on Friday the way they happened. He wouldn't be 10 for 26. Maybe he would be 15 for 26, and if he's 15 for 26, you're up there and maybe you win the game. I don't know. I think it's worth talking about. Had there been this like Evan Prater package, maybe your playbook there is expanded a little bit. Obviously, those are still things you have to run, and that's going to cut into your practice time that you have to implement those things. But I don't know.
Some specialty stuff like that is what I was talking about for a long time, but it doesn't change the fact that you have an offense, and this is what the staff has decided their offense to be, and you need to tailor that to your players.
Yeah.
You can't be hard-headed and say this is what we're going to run regardless of what our our personnel is. And I don't think that was an issue Friday. Like I don't have a problem with how they ran the offense on Friday. They just the passing game did not execute, and this is like, it seems like they haven't taken the easy plays, yards. I mean, that's one of my biggest bones to pick with the offense all year. Is
we've talked about it here a lot.
Is that, and especially in a game like this, trying to get the quarterback going, trying to get the quarterback something easy. I think they did. We just didn't
execute,
didn't convert. And and that's what, like you said earlier, like we're 3 years in. Yes, not a lot of in-game experience, but a ton of practice experience, a ton of, it was a QB battle in fall. So he got tons of reps with the ones.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's crystallizing that him as a passer
it's not there.
It's just not there. And at this point, how many guys do you think, I'm not going to say it can't happen, but like you're 3 years in, how many guys are just going to turn into, a 60 to 65% passing quarterback? You have to be in a very specific scheme where you're very run heavy. Your throws are short to intermediate, and you take advantage of a defense that is basically selling out to stop the run,
like a triple option style offense.
It's just, I'm not trying to be a certain way about it. I'm just trying to be honest in what I see and look at how,
And the only thing we have to look at really for an extended amount of plays are the second half against Temple and this game against Tulane, and what was shown in that is not necessarily promising.
Right, because the second half of Temple, I think rightfully they clearly just said we don't have to lose this game.
Yeah,
like just don't lose the game. We're not concerned with what he can or can't do. The defense is playing great. We'll call the plays that need to be called given the time and down and distance, and we'll lean on the run game, and we'll get the hell out of here. This game was the concerning game to me because you got a full week to prepare. You got all the reps. I mean, clearly, Ben Bryant did not practice.
Right.
So you got everything. You got to sit in the meetings with the coaches, telling them, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. You got to sit in the meetings with the coaches, talking about scripting the first 15. Okay, Evan, what do you like? What do you not like? What do you want to do here? If they show us this, what do you mean? And then to just from a pure passing standpoint, it was concerning to me because it's concerning to me in the sense of where does this giant leap come from if, say, Ben Bryant doesn't return and he's the starting quarterback next year?
Well, I think Natalie fired the question off. You can't revamp things in 1 week, but it makes me wonder what happens going into 2023 and what exactly they did coming into this season. I think coming into this season, it makes sense why they went out and got Ben Bryant out of the portal.
I think you hit on a sneaky one right there. I think they knew.
Well, it's literally as soon as he hit the portal, they're up there, offered him to come back.
Yeah, so they build an offense around a pure passing quarterback that has, and we can argue till we're blue in the face about usage rates and things like that, but that has playmakers on the outside, tight ends, running backs, like quality pieces around him. We're not having to smoke and mirror it with, a bunch of run RPO stuff, a bunch of run game, quarterback run stuff. Not that is necessarily smoke and mirrors, but like they had an offense in mind and a quarterback in mind, and they went and got that quarterback, and they're 9-2 going to play a game, and he gets hurt, and I'm not going to say if I don't do the whole coulda, shoulda, woulda. Tulane deserves all the credit in the world. They've had to go from 2-10 to 10-2 and in the conference championship game, deserve tons of credit. Tajay Spears is a dude. We knew he was a dude. Like, couldn't stop him. But you can't then also not go, man, if Ben played, I'm pretty sure we win.
I mean, that's what we do
as
fans.
That's
right?
life. That's football. That guys get hurt. It happens. I'm not going to bemoan that. I mean, but like,
And then like you say that, like, yeah, if Ben's in the game, you win, whatever you think you win, think it's going to happen. But then when it comes down to it, they had the lead
for sure.
They fought back and got the lead regardless of what was going on. It wasn't a situation where they scored on 3-play drives with these 60-70 yard passes down the field. They took time off the clock on the drives that went these the 10 plus plays. You're seeing it and you're like, okay, maybe things are starting to click, maybe things are coming together here. Some decent little passes, some really good runs.
It's definitely just a handful of things, but it's a handful of things that either kill a drive from starting,
well,
or kill a drive altogether.
And when you have when you have a quarterback that is the way we've described and discussed the last half hour, whatever we've talked about it, you can't start deep in your own territory and your first play be a false start when you need to get down the field.
Sure.
You just can't start at 1st and 15 when you don't seemingly have the ability to throw the ball.
And this is a really good point too. It's not that Ben wins the game. It's that Tyler and Trey get the ball more and they win the game. And that I actually wrote this down and didn't mention it yet. Tyler Scott, Trey Tucker, Josh Wiley. 13 targets, 1 catch.
Yeah.
Whether that's scheming it up to get sometimes you just got to scheme it up and get the dudes the ball, or it's not being able to get them the ball because you can't complete a pass. It's not that Ben goes out there and on his back says, "Let's go, dudes! I got you. We're going to win this thing." It's that Tyler Scott probably gets at least 5 catches, 7 catches. And now you maybe run the ball less. You're obviously going to run the ball less because you're not going to have 18 runs from your quarterback.
Right.
But Trey Tucker doesn't have 0 catches. Josh Wiley probably doesn't have 0 catches. Lenny Taylor probably doesn't have 1 target. Like, Jaden Thompson had 9 targets.
Yeah.
Had 5 of the 10 catches. Longest one was 8 yards. Like, they didn't have to think for 1 second that we were going to try to throw the ball over their head.
But
how much easier it is to play defense? How easier it is to play defense when the safeties aren't worried about getting run by?
Man, there were a couple. It has to come down to the fact that he can't throw the ball that far. That's the only thing I can think of, because there were several plays where he had a clean pocket. He's not scrambling around. He doesn't have to do anything back except sit and wait for 2, 4, 3, 40 guys on the outside to just run by people. And you can't tell me that
he can throw the ball that far. I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I don't think it's a lack of but it made me wonder, at what point do you just try to make a play? You game it up and you send Tyler Scott on a double move and you just, force it. Try to make a play. We didn't.
Or roll him out and let him launch one.
I mean, it can just be a normal play that we've run countless times.
All year?
We didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the touchdown that Ben had against ECU on the RPO at the Tyler Scott. I mean, I certainly can be wrong, but it didn't feel like we even ran much RPO throw game stuff.
Yeah, it did seem like a lot of that stuff was pretty basic, front of the playbook kind of stuff. And
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, because
you're gonna have that with a guy that hasn't played, more than really 2 truly meaningful quarters of football in 3 years.
For sure. And I think that's where you get into like the whole like read one side of the field, one read. If it's not there, go. Whereas Ben has been good at, and has had errors at the same time, but he's been good at hanging in, waiting for things to develop late, getting to maybe his second and third read, where I don't even want Evan to do that. Like that was my problem. Like I don't want you hanging in there trying to make something happen. I want you to see it, and if you don't see it, go be an athlete, go make a play, go get 4 or 5 yards and set up 2nd and 5. Don't hang in there thinking that this receiver that I'm locked in on is going to all of a sudden break open and I can get him the ball.
And that seemed like what was going on. And then, when it all boils down to it, the best pass of the game is on 4th and 15 to on a play
your best player.
A play that we have seen countless times be completed, and then you watch him split the defense. He's got to beat one safety right there, and my bet is on Tyler Scott. If he hauls that in, I would put that 75% chance that he's taking it to the house.
It's a great throw by Evan. It's a bad play by Tyler Scott, and he'll be thinking about that for a long time. I mean,
obviously, It was a whole game. It was a whole game of there were things that happened throughout that put them in that position.
Right. I mean, you can't if he catches it and gets tackled there, you still have under a minute and 30-something, 40-something yards you've got to get into field goal range for a tie. Yes.
Yeah, there's still a lot of things you got to do.
Who knows what would have happened? But I mean, it's tough for me to put too much on one singular play like that so far into the game.
It's the same reason you don't put you don't hang the game on Arquan Bush's shoulders. Yeah. You don't do that. And obviously, the Twitter sphere, there were folks that were putting it on this guy or this guy or this guy, and this team we've talked about it, has won ugly pretty much all year. They kind of played with fire a lot.
The team didn't play good enough all the way around. I mean, special teams has been great all year, and they weren't bad, but they were pretty even. Like, we had the penalty on the punt. Ryan Coe kicked one out of bounds.
Yeah.
We made the field goal that we attempted, and didn't give up gave up a fairly decent punt return on one. I want to say, gave up a 14-yard punt return, which never happens. Gave up a 31-yard kickoff return, which never happens. Their kicker put everything in the end zone. You had an 11-yard return and a 21-yard return. No returns on punts. He punted 4 times. There were no returns. He only averaged 40 yards, and Mason averaged 45. So you had a little, but there was not a huge disparity in the special teams game. It was very, very even. And that's something where we have, that's been a big advantage for us. So you don't stop the run. You aren't a clear winner in special teams, and you complete 40% of your passes. Everybody is at fault in this game. And I don't care if you lose by 3 or 30, everybody contributed, and it's not good enough. And I understand the frustration, and there's a lot of factors that clearly go into it. I mean, you're already way up against the 8 ball when you start a backup quarterback in a game of this magnitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a game of this magnitude against another comparable team. So when you're not great in 3 pretty big areas in all aspects of the game, you're probably going to lose.
I do want to bring this up because I saw it get posted. I think it was Viva La Cat's Twitter that posted it, and Aaron probably knows what I'm about to bring up. Desmond Ridder against UCLA in 2018 was 13 of 24 for 100 yards. But
UCLA
also
won
carries.
like 3 freaking games that year.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, here. This is what I'm saying. I am not saying that Evan becomes Desmond Ridder, because I think in that situation, Des had what I think it was his redshirt sophomore year, so a redshirt freshman year.
Yeah, redshirt freshman year.
So he
2018. He was in the 2017 class.
So he had less time, developing. It's just an interesting stat that really means nothing in the whole grand scheme of things. But I just thought when somebody put it, their Twitter account put it up, I just thought it was kind of interesting that the similarities and the stat numbers there. But the other difference there is they did enough to win that game.
Yeah. Mike Warren was a dude. UCLA wasn't very good. I mean,
Ryan Montgomery tried to be the dude, and he did his damnedest.
I mean, we ran the ball more than fine.
Mike Warren
compared to how we had been running the ball all year. We ran the ball quite better than we had. I mean, Holly, I kind of get what you're saying, but I think they did. He ran the ball 18 times. She says, I don't think they used Evan to his strengths enough. They ran the ball 18 times and had short to intermediate pass plays. Like, that's exactly how I thought he should be used. Run the ball with his athletic ability and give him quick, easy decisions in the passing game, and we weren't able to convert him. It wasn't like they were trying to hit 17-yard crossers and double move corner routes and plays that take a long time to develop. I don't know what else they could have done. I mean, sure, you can nitpick here and there and say you could have done some jet sweeps, could have ran him like some very intentional runs like they did with Pratt. You just get the ball and you go around the edge. Yes, there's always going to be things that in the course of an entire game you can say, I wish they would have done that, or maybe they could have had more success if they had done this. But the overall grand scheme of the offensive game plan, I don't have an issue with. They didn't execute it in the passing game. They executed it in the running game. I mean, They ran for, you had 0 negative run plays. Montgomery and Chuck lost 0 yards running the ball. Evan lost 5 yards running the ball and 1 sack. So of 240 available yards running the ball, they gained 235 of them for 5.5 yards a carry. Yeah. That is more than enough to win that game with any semblance of a passing attack.
And there wasn't one.
No. And, if it sounds like we're being extremely critical, well, this was to go to a conference championship game. And, you have to be critical. And if you're going to sit here and this isn't going to turn into like an I told you so thing. Like, because I don't care. I want the best players to play. I want them to win all their games. I don't give a rip who plays. It does not matter to me one bit who actually plays, as long as they're producing and the team is winning. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that he should have been starting all year, I'm going to sit here and tell you that Friday was why he wasn't. And I don't think that type of mindset coming back has any leg to stand on.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe Chad mentioned something about it on his Twitter. The expectations here in Cincinnati, obviously, over the last 5 years have changed greatly. It's a place where, go look, they're 9-3.
And that is good.
They're 9-3.
I want borderline unrealistic expectations.
Yes. Go look at at the Big Ten and look at like the Big Ten West all the way down. Do you want to be that?
borderline unrealistic expectations is fine, but when the evidence is presented to you,
Yes.
you also have to be cognizant enough to say, yep, I can see why decisions have been made. The sample size is incredibly small, but the sample size is all I have to go off of. So if what I'm shown tells me one thing, I can't just go, nope, that's not real.
Exactly.
Like if he'd have played more, that wouldn't have been what we would have saw.
And maybe that's the case, but we don't know that. You don't know that pure game reps improves him. Now, the thing is between here and whatever bowl we end up in, he's going to have a lot of time to practice with the ones.
You get 15 practices. I mean,
so you're going to have that.
Depending on when the bowl is, and it'll be interesting to see what
who
comes
they go against.
I'm not sure you're going to see like some
there's not
tangible,
like a light switch change,
tangible difference in that amount of time. But I mean, there are still things I'd like to see. Like I would like to see if you're going to call a jet pass that you don't bounce it. Like that to me, that has nothing to do with how many games you've started.
No, it doesn't. That's
missing some throws by like yards, not like placement. I should have hit him here to the left, and I hit him behind. Like missing throws by yards has nothing to do with how many games you've started. It has to do with footwork and delivery and just being a passer of the football. Those things I want to see improve for sure. Because I want to see them win a 10th game. Like I don't care at all who the quarterback is, who the center is, who the backup outside linebacker is. Doesn't matter to me one bit. None of these people are in my family. I don't care. One way or the other. Just win the game, and the best players play, and they need to produce, or other players need to play if they have earned that. Just because someone isn't playing great, you don't just make a change to make a change. The other person that you're going to put in has to have earned it and give you at least the same, level of production. Yeah. So
the person you put in, I mean, it's kind of like when we talked about it. And I know he's gotten some things, but like Arquan Bush, he's a slot corner, and everybody said, well, kind of at the beginning of the season, I remember discussing like, well, why wouldn't we maybe look at putting him back there and putting somebody else on the outside? But what we were getting out of our slot corners this year was pretty good,
right? I mean, that was my thing with that is, and I had that question going into the year. Like they obviously felt more comfortable with Taj Ward and
Sammy Anderson.
Oh, Aaron, where are you? We've got some infiltrators.
Oh no! Oh, get it out of there! We are not that kind of show.
They obviously felt more comfortable with Taj Ward and Sammy Anderson in the slot and Arquan outside versus Arquan in the slot and whoever else is playing outside.
Right.
Now I can disagree and say, I still probably would have maybe done the opposite, but I don't. But I understand the logic behind it. So, it's unfortunate.
Like
you
here's
lose,
the thing:
you lose a close game at home, and you're gonna have you have to have these conversations.
I would much rather be where we're at now, having a conversation and being disappointed, that we didn't make it back to a fourth conference championship game, than I would be sitting here saying, yep, it was nice. We won 5 games this year. We won 6 games and we're bowl eligible. It's great. Like that's the level of things in this program. I mean, and this fan base has changed so dramatically since Luke Fickell got here. And there's been crazy talk. People want literally everyone on the coaching staff gone. Like
there are going to be a lot of. If that's the case, then there's going to be some disappointing people.
Like some really disappointing.
I can tell you.
I mean, it is nuts.
99% sure most of those things that are being asked for are not going to happen. So
I mean, you look at the fact that they lost 9 guys to the NFL, and 9 guys that are contributing, well, give or take a few guys in the NFL. They lost coaches, like main guys that they replaced, and they still were in the position they were in on Friday.
They also had injuries to the defensive line in particular.
Right. I mean, but
Right. So
it's all part of. I just look at it. It's all part of being a high level program. Every high level program loses coaches every year.
Yes.
Everybody deals, like last year, we were very, very lucky from an injury standpoint. This year, we weren't so much.
Right.
So that's just part of sports in general.
But it's also a testament to where the program is, because you see some places who lose some guys to the NFL, or they lose their better guys, they graduate, whatever. They're no longer in the program. Coaches that move on and go places, and then that program just totally implodes and is off the map. Gone.
Right. You have much more of a dip than what UC had this year, and expectations were high, and rightfully so. And we didn't meet those expectations. But there's a difference between that and understanding what can happen, what they can correct, what they can get better at, versus taking it all the way to the extreme of like we need to blow it all up. It's just not going to happen. It shouldn't happen when you just fall short of expectation. Like, you also have to, like, they're not excuses, they're reasons, and you just have to say that this team just wasn't quite as good as we had hoped, and there are a lot of contributing factors, and you take that and you build on it for next year, and you try to fix those things. In reality, like, what this team needs? It needs more talent. Like, it needs better players, and that's not saying anything personal or anything about any of the guys on the current roster, but against the best teams that they played this year, they were in every single one of those games. Whether it was Arkansas,
total of 14 points,
UCF, Tulane, but I would say that from a talent perspective, and and an overall, just yes, Arkansas went 6-6. They play in the SEC. Like, they're still they have a lot of talent. They're still a good team. Even throw East Carolina in there if you want. Like, had a solid year. Like, all those games were close. They did not have the talent, or you can say the coaching. You can say, but to me, it comes down to talent. Like, you need the dudes to make the plays, and they didn't have the guys in those tight games to make the plays, and so they need more guys. It's a Jimmy's and Joe's thing, man. Like, you watch these games, they're with these elite teams. They're typically very close games, and they're decided because somebody makes a really good player that makes a play. And we didn't have enough of those guys this year. We didn't have enough of those guys offensively, whether it was in the run game, early in the season, mid-season, whether it was in the pass game, has been kind of regressed to points during the season. We certainly didn't have enough on defense as the season wore on, where tackles for loss and sacks really went down. We weren't getting turnovers. Like, it's kind of simple when you really boil it down. It's like, you just need a lot of dudes, and you need those guys to step up and make plays at key moments, and that is crystal clear in the UCF game and in the Tulane game.
Yeah, and like I said, and I know I talked to you guys about this before, but I tweeted out, like, see who the real ride or die UC fans are, because it's one, and people took it like a crazy way. Like, I was like, I don't know, somebody thought I was like gatekeeping fandom to UC. And the only point I was really trying to make is when the team that you're now, like, all of a sudden a fan of isn't at the top of the proverbial mountaintop, there are fans who fade into the ether and go elsewhere with their fair weather fandom.
That's fine. That's going to happen no matter what. I'd rather that happen than you have, like, back-to-back 4 and 8 seasons, and there's 8,000 people at the Memphis game. Where I wasn't even there. I went on vacation to Atlanta to see a buddy, and I'm like hardly even paying attention as they're getting dog walked up and down the field. Like,
you don't want that.
Fans come and go. It happens. Like,
have a chance to win 10 games this year.
how you allocate your time and money is none of my business. If you want to be
Right.
a diehard and listen to every one of our podcasts and go to every game and go to the road games, awesome. If you just want to casually stop in if they're having a good season
Yeah.
or what, like, it's whatever to me. But like, it's just most of it makes me laugh because
Oh.
I think it's all funny, and then I get you're not allowed to laugh and you're not allowed to joke, and because this is clearly something horrible. This is life or death. I mean, God forbid they go 9-3 and don't have 4 straight unbelievable seasons. Like,
I mean, it's nice. It's nice to have a team that is this good. The expectations are where they are, and I obviously, like, we have, it kind of boosts what we said at the beginning of the year. You've got to this coaching staff has earned the right to make the decisions they're going to make, and you have to expect that is the best decision for the team. I think it was. They got to where they're at. Unfortunately, they didn't make enough plays in the last game to get over the mountaintop. Then there was another. You have to put all your eggs in the 1-win USF basket that got spilled all over the place at the end of that game. I'm sure Aaron has
all you suckers stayed up all night watching that garbage, thinking that they actually had a chance to win.
A very in-depth. I didn't even watch it.
I didn't either.
Was that last touchdown a touchdown? I don't think it was a touchdown.
I have no idea. I haven't seen a single thing from that game.
I saw the highlight that you're talking about, Aaron, and I'm sure you're going to break it down frame by frame on the AAC recap.
If it was called, from what it sounds like, it was a touchdown because it was called a touchdown on the field.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't called a touchdown on the field, it probably wouldn't have been. But I haven't seen it.
Dave, he jumped from like the half-yard line over the corner, over the pylon, landed out of bounds.
Yeah.
I didn't see anywhere where he landed in bounds.
But he caught it when he jumped. Like he didn't have the ball until he caught it over the end zone. But I'm not sure he ever touched the end zone.
And here's the thing: is like,
I hate everything.
We're complaining. Like you're bringing up a play that happened in a game that shouldn't have mattered because everything was in front of you, and you dropped the ball.
If we win, we're not worried about 1-11, 1-10 South Florida winning a game like
against a ranked UCF, like a very UCF team.
I always kind of looked at this year as just a transition. Like not a rebuild, not a reload, none of these whatevers. Like I just looked at it as like, how are we transitioning from what was last year on the field, the players, the coaches, everything that is not part of this program anymore. How are we transitioning to what we're going to go into? And I think the clearest thing that it told me in this transition is that we need more dudes that are like 21, 22-year-olds, not 17, 18-year-old freshmen. And I don't think that this is a philosophy change for the program. I mean, as long as Luke is the coach, they're going to recruit high school kids. But the transfer portal is a much, much bigger piece of the overall puzzle, and it's only going to get bigger. And I think if you're not using it, you're doing it at a detriment to your program. Like, they cannot go into the Big 12 and just think that we're going to develop the guys we have on the roster and that young guys are going to step up and it's going to be, we're going to meet the expectations that we have. They need to go. And I think they realize this. I mean, I'm not like breaking any news. I think they realize that we need to go get some adults, whether they've played a lot or not, but like we need some adults at certain positions that are developed and that, are not, let's, use D-line, for example. Like we need some size. We need some,
because you're not going to have a Dante Corleone that comes in every year, like a whole line of freshman Dante Corleone. Like that's not going to happen.
No, you need it across the board. You need more 6'4", 6'5", 280, like even at the end position. Like
I told Chad there shouldn't be a single position that is off the board. Like
No, I mean if you find the right guy and you have the right, I don't necessarily think there is. It's just a matter of finding that person that wants to come.
He didn't seem to agree.
Well,
no.
I'm sure he didn't, but no, I mean you throw out interest to certain players, and if they are interested in what you offer, then you go down the road further. But they definitely need to, in my opinion, to improve the overall roster, and I don't think that comes from solely as much as it has in the past from just straight high school recruiting.
Yeah,
all those guys aren't going to hit, and they're going to take. I mean, there's guys in this incoming freshman class that I think are really good, but like they're not helping next year in the Big 12.
No, you've got to go out and really, I mean, this is gonna like come. I don't know. It's gonna sound awful. It's kind of good the situation they ended up in this Tulane game, like having to start Evan, to see what was there, to show what was there, and know, like, kind of really know, at least let the fan base know that the decisions they made were the right ones. I mean, I know that, like, look, I don't want anybody to get hurt or like somebody lose their starting role because they get hurt and these kinds of things, but like the definitive answer is exactly what you're saying, that they've got to go get dudes in certain spots. And like Aaron said, he doesn't care if the whole team leaves and they replace them with everybody out of the transfer portal. But you know, they've got a pretty clear picture here of what's got to happen. I think they probably had that picture kind of behind closed doors before some other people, like the rest of the fan base, saw it. I don't know who's going to be available. I think it opens in like 8 days, the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, technically December 5th, unless you're a grad transfer or you're on a team with a coaching change, they are officially in the portal. Now, let's be real. There are conversations being had nationwide, because you're going to see guys on official visits December 8th.
Yeah.
And you think that all happened in 3 days from the time that they officially went into the portal on December 5th to setting up official visit somewhere on December 8th. I mean,
you're probably going to see guys committing to hitting the portal and committing in the same day to some places.
It wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, that's going to happen. We know it happens. It is what it is. I know there's a pretty concerted effort out there for a new NIL collective here at UC. So like those things are going to have to be leveraged.
It all has to ramp up everything. Talent eval, talent development, portal usage, and NIL are giving to the program, whether, as a donor, whether it's donor time going to game, like everything has to ramp up and everything has to sustain. Like if you want to have continued success, like look at and granted, this has been built over a long, long time.
Yeah.
But like, look at a program like Nebraska. They have stunk for a long time, and their fan base has stayed very loyal because they realize that like we can help the program get out of this hole. Now they've made bad coaching hires and things have been problematic along those lines, but like UC has to get to a point, and it might still take a lot of time, but UC has to get to a point to where if you have a bad season, everybody, like half the fan base, doesn't just jump ship.
It doesn't disappear. Yep. Like
you're 4-4 and you have a home game and there's 20,000 people there. Like that can't happen anymore. You have that's why we need to keep building the fan base, because numbers tell you that people are going to fan that way. So you have to have more people bought in no matter what. I mean, that's long-term
buy-in to the program.
That's what it comes down to. Like, and if you're going to compete at the highest level, if you're going to win Big 12 championships and compete against programs that have bigger fan bases, bigger stadiums, way more money,
historic fan bases,
then we have to do the part that we can control also. So it's going to be a learning experience for everybody. I think it's obviously great, and I'm willing to take whatever take whatever roadblocks come with it versus the nonsense that would be continuing on the path that we were on.
Yeah, there's not going to be. I can't think of a Big 12 game where you're going to go to a road stadium and there's going to be 15 people sitting on the 50-yard line that happen to be the parents of seniors from the other team, and that's
right.
it. I just can't see that happening anywhere in the Big 12. So that's good, and there are going to be some. We've obviously developed a pretty healthy rivalry with UCF. That's come together. I'm excited about that. The fan bases genuinely hate each other, and it's cool. I enjoy it. It was brought up that we talked about this over the summer that I think it was a West Virginia. Aaron can probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it was a West Virginia fans Reddit post about the way that conferences are changing, that you don't get to keep these long extended rivalries. We're kind of lucky that we're moving into the Big 12 with UCF, and it's been a pretty fun rivalry. Hopefully those things are allowed to foster and build, and I don't know, maybe they'll come up with some kind of something or another. But I did see that maybe we end up going against Louisville in a bowl game, and maybe we can.
I would just like to go up against a team in a bowl game that's not 6-6. I don't really care who it is, but every game that we play outside of the Peach Bowl and the College Football Playoff during this stretch, they've all been 6-6 ACC teams. Can I just get an 8-4 Pitt? Someone that whatever.
Well, something to draw some interest. I think the Louisville game would draw interest just because
it would draw. Oh, for sure. That would be just a fun game because we don't get to play them anymore. But I don't care about whatever bowl game they go to. It's not about me. The players deserve it. The coaches deserve it.
Yeah.
They
didn't backdoor their way into bowl eligibility. We're not standing there hoping against hope that they win their last game to become bowl eligible.
Right.
And the season didn't turn out the way that we or the players or coaches or whatever really were hoping that it would. But I think a lot of questions were answered throughout the season, and we can move through this transition into the Big 12, knowing what needs to happen. For
sure. You want to do some national stuff, because there was clearly a lot going on.
Yeah. The number 2 team in the country. Well, we can skip the number 1 team in the country because that wasn't a game. Georgia played Georgia Tech and handily beat them. But the number 2
7-0 Georgia Tech for a minute.
Was it just a minute? Well, I guess it was 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. So they did have a lead there. But the number 2 team in the country got run out of their own stadium.
That is a soft finesse collection of very good players that feels like it has something missing to be a great team, and that collection of very good players is good enough to beat a lot of good to very good teams, but it seems like their overall style of play is not meant to beat teams with comparable talent who also like to play a certain brand of football.
Yeah. I thought Michigan was going to be in trouble when Corum couldn't go, and it looked that way early on.
Oh, I felt they had no chance to score enough points to win.
And
with Corum being injured, Donovan Edwards being injured,
Donovan Edwards ended up with
right. But he ended up 150 yards on 2 plays.
22 carries for 216 yards. I think 205 of those yards were in the second half. That's crazy. JJ McCarthy did enough. 12 for 24 for 263 yards. Like you're there's 50% passing completion, but for 263 yards.
Safety DB busts all over the place and 5 or 6 plays over 30 yards.
Yeah, it was a game where like one of my really good friends went to Ohio State, is a huge Ohio State fan. Like he roots for UC on the games so like he's not your typical Ohio State fan. But I did leave him alone last night. I didn't send any messages to him. But it was pretty clear who the better team was on the field. And it wasn't Ohio State. I did think it was going to be a closer game. I didn't think that one team or the other was going to do what Michigan did to Ohio State, and they scored a kind of a like the exclamation point touchdown at the end.
Yeah, he just busted an 80-yard run.
Yeah, but I didn't think that it was really that close of a game. I mean,
no, it certainly wasn't. I mean, it felt like it all kind of flipped. Ohio State was down 24-20 around the 40-yard line or so of Michigan, and Ryan Day decided to punt. And they went right down and scored, and the game kind of ended right there. And I'm not saying if he'd went for it that it would have, and converted, that who knows how it would have changed. But that definitely felt like a momentum play where C.J. Stroud was clearly wanting to go for it.
Yeah,
and they did not. But
his C.J. Stroud's Heisman quest went up in smoke yesterday out there in Columbus. So
yeah, I think Caleb Williams has locked that bad boy up.
And then we can jump there if you want to go. Was it USC Notre Dame?
Sure.
I didn't really get to see like a whole lot of it. That's my kid took over control of the TV and wanted to watch Texas A&M LSU, so that's what we ended up watching some of. But
yeah, I watched a decent amount. I mean, Notre Dame hung around for a little bit, but USC keeps their ridiculous turnover luck, manufacturing, whatever you want to say, going. They're like plus 26, 27 in turnovers this year. It's ridiculous.
They got 2 more.
But yeah, offensively, they're hard to slow down, and defensively they create turnovers. And their defense isn't really that good, but they've taken the ball away so much that it sets their offense up in a great spot. Clemson lost at home, so you have the 2 longest home win streaks go down on back-to-back days. It was didn't see a ton of that, but
I will say with Notre Dame, they did turn around a season that looked like it was going to be horrendously disastrous at the start. They seemed to not have much of an identity or anybody that could do much of anything for them, and they I guess what are they 8-4 now? What they in the season 8-4? So
yes,
and they had their signature win over Clemson. So
yeah,
good for Marcus Freeman. And then who did you want to jump? Who are you jumping to next? Clemson.
Yeah, I mean Clemson lost at LSU. I mean there was a lot going on. The Tennessee Vols had a tough one.
Yeah. Vanderbilt really came out, punched them in the mouth. Early on, and Tennessee eked out a 56-0 win.
Tennessee's backup quarterback throws the prettiest football I've ever seen. Now, half the time he has no idea where it's going, especially on deep balls. Like, I mean, Jeff, I'm not kidding. I think he can throw the ball 100 yards.
I think we talked about this.
He has the strongest arm I've ever seen. He's overthrowing guys on 10 yards on 60-yard go routes. Like, it's ridiculous. But Vandy had the most Vandy play Vandy could ever Vandy, where they were getting destroyed. They faked a punt. got the first down, and then the punter got hit and fumbled, and Tennessee recovered it.
I don't know what to say to that.
And Vandy also beating Kentucky and Florida makes beating them 56-0 just a little sweeter.
That, I don't know. That's interesting. Is this the same Alex Bales that?
Yes, it is. I had no idea he dropped punts for Oregon.
Yeah, I didn't know that he.
That was a wild one. I stopped watching it, and then I see on Twitter that Oregon State has now scored 21 unanswered points and is winning. It's like, wait, I thought this game was because it was 14-10 at halftime. Within the first 6 minutes of the second half, Oregon scores 2 touchdowns. So I'm like, well, it's 28-10. I'm not really watching this anymore. And then all of a sudden I see that Oregon State scores 21 straight and they're now winning.
Yeah.
So it was very confusing. And then Oregon gets all the way down pretty much to chance to win or whatever and doesn't do it, which I'm not going to take this one away from Aaron and Chad later, but I did see the very end of the Memphis SMU game, and if Ryan Silverfield from Memphis gets fired because his quarterback made one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen in my life, I actually feel really bad for him.
Ooh, I didn't watch that game, so
there's 9 seconds left. They have the ball on SMU's 3-yard line, down 3. So obviously they're going to try to score to win, but you're in field goal range, so you're going to overtime more than likely. He throws an interception in the end zone where there wasn't a Memphis player within 10 yards of the guy that he threw the ball to. It's almost as if he had money on the game. Like he had SMU money line. And I have to figure out a way to win this bet because I have no idea what he was doing. I have no idea who he was throwing the ball to. And SMU wins by 3 because it was wild that's what happened at the end of the game.
And then Utah had a tough one against Colorado, who is apparently offered Prime the coaching
that would
position
just
there.
Be an awful decision by him.
But to get into the Power 5 any way you can.
No, to get into that situation, there's other jobs that he could get that he would be more successful at.
Penn State, Michigan State was relatively good game for a while, and then Penn State kind of ended it there in the fourth quarter. UCF South Florida, another AAC matchup that Aaron will cover.
I did not watch any of it, so I will not speak on it.
I didn't watch it only because I watched John Rice Plumlee run for 100 yards on the first drive and score a touchdown, and I was like, well, that was fun because I tried to do the same thing I did when I predicted that UCF would lose to Navy, which turned out well. So I tweeted USF's going to beat UCF. We tried it again, and then it was a large gap. I think they were down 28-7 at one point, and then they scored 22 points. It looks like in the third quarter. So Twitter starts blowing up with oh my God, is this really happening? And I'm like, I can't turn the game on now. I haven't watched any more of it since.
Silly people.
It was bad. So then I guess it kind of. They didn't get the stop that they needed to get. I don't know. USF ran three runs right up the middle, and I don't know if they were having success elsewhere at that point. Obviously, that was a long shot that was going to happen. That they were going to assist UC to backing into the championship game at that point. Aaron's probably got a very in-depth breakdown coming for that game later. So
very
excited. I'll wait for that.
Very excited for that.
But there is quite the shakeup at the top of the CFP. I don't know who you got TCU won.
Yeah, I think if TCU wins the Big 12 and USC wins the Pac-12, it's Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC. Which I'm hoping for
beyond hope.
Yes, because I just don't. I want to see. I like seeing teams that haven't been in. I don't want to run the risk.
Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State,
Alabama
Michigan
is in, or I don't need to see those teams anymore. Like Alabama and Ohio State did not have playoff worthy seasons. Like
yeah,
they didn't. And I don't. They might get in because God forbid no one else did either. That's the problem. Like if TCU and or USC lose, like I don't have another team that I would say deserves to be in over them.
If there was a year for them to start the 12-team playoff, this year would have been fun for it. Just because I think that there's a lot of teams across that, like in the upper echelon there, that are kind of back and forth.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good teams. There's not 4 like outstanding playoff worthy teams this year.
Natalie, I don't know if I don't think tonight's going to be the grand finale. Of the
there's still the championship game. There's still bowl games, and there's still basketball season. Can't wait.
Yeah,
Aaron's really excited about it. That's why the first 2 letters of his name are AA.
That's right.
Oh, the highlighter green uniforms that USF was wearing. Yeah. That's a decision too.
Not awesome.
I do want to go back to, and I guess we probably know now why they handled it the way they did. But again, at the end of the first half in the UC game, I don't know, just kind of packing it in, not calling a timeout. I know we were already done talking about that, but it just jumped back in my head because I recall saying that was quite the decision.
Hey, Aaron,
the way the time was handled.
Can you jump in here for a second?
Yes.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh. Dave's gonna jump out. What were your thoughts, Aaron, on the clock management at the end of the first half of the UC game?
I don't know, man. I mean, just if there's something to be nitpicky with Coach Luke Fickell about, it's mismanagement of the clock at the end of either half and mismanagement of timeouts. That has been a fairly consistent thing.
I mean, all the way back to, like, if you look at the game against Georgia, what's that been now? 2.5 years ago? 2 years ago? Yeah. Obviously, there was some clock mismanagement there. I don't know. Are you going to be going to whatever bowl game UC ends up in? Like,
am I going to drive to Annapolis over the Pennsylvania Turnpike in the middle of winter? No.
Come on, Aaron. Show some dedication.
I'm trying to live.
I heard screaming and the doors slamming, and I thought we had issues, but instead there's like a dance party going on. So
I don't want to go careening off a highway in the mountains of Pennsylvania as my last moments here on this earth.
All right, we want to cover week 11 of Bearcats in the NFL?
Sure.
Brian Cook, 3 tackles. Marquise Copeland, 2 tackles. Jerome Ford, 2 returns, 49 yards and a tackle. Derek Forrest, 4 tackles, an interception, of pass defense, and he joined them on the BBP this past week.
Yes.
He showed up there. Sauce Gardner, a tackle and a pass defense. Travis Kelce, 6 receptions, 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jason Kelce, 0 sacks allowed. Chris Moore, 5 receptions, 20 yards. Alec Pierce, 3 receptions for 28 yards. Myjai Sanders, 2 tackles, and Eric Wilson with a tackle. So, again, like we say every week, it's fun to have these guys in the NFL that we can flip through games when our beloved Bengals aren't playing.
That's right.
And they've got quite the game scheduled today down in Nashville. And I don't know if they officially ruled Chase out today.
Yes, he is not playing.
Okay. So, yeah.
I mean, I guess the team hasn't said anything, I guess, but they don't really have to. It doesn't. There's enough people saying that he's not playing for me to think that he's not playing. So, to get a similar responses to last week in Pittsburgh, and hopefully Ryan Tannehill does more Ryan Tannehill-like things like he did last year against the Bengals. Yeah. The defense, Joe Mixon is also out still with concussion-like symptoms. Hasn't been cleared. But this is an easy one. Like, the Titans have a really good defense. They're going to want to run Derrick Henry and play off of that with play action, and so it's very similar to like the UC game Friday. Like, you know what you're getting with the Titans.
Yep.
And they're playing really good. I mean, their only loss in their last 8 is an overtime loss at Kansas City. So they're playing well. The Bengals are playing well. They get a road win here and go to 7-4. That sets them. I mean, they still have several tough games. You still have the Chiefs. You still have the Bucks. You still have to go to New England. You got to play the Bills. But like 7-4 puts them in a pretty good spot to have a real chance to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah, we went over all of the kind of our predictions on the games, and Ed was supposed to write them down so we can go back and look at that at the end of the year. So we'll see what that comes out to, but I think they need to get to 11 wins to get into the playoffs. I know that there have been some people who've said that there's some scenarios where they can only win 9 games and sneak into that wild card spot, but I don't want to leave it up to that. I think they need 11. And it's going to start, this kind of difficult stretch now starts with the Titans at 1:00 today.
Yep.
I don't know if there's going to be a Bearcat brunch next week. If it's
I'm sure there will be. We're going till the season's over, pal.
So there won't be there won't be a Bearcats game to recap next week, but there will be some other things to recap. So
we'll talk. We
can discuss some things.
The portal will be about to open Monday. Maybe I'll have some info on some players that they might be interested in. Maybe we'll kind of look at that and and discuss the championship games and the CFP, and we'll still have
it'll just be a slightly different format.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we will be back. So keep your alerts set to on, and keep liking things and keep showing up, and we really appreciate all the engagement during the show and on the Bearcat Journal boards. We enjoy that. If you guys have questions and things that you want to fire into there, we are reading them and looking at them and trying to take them into consideration.
Absolutely. So with that, we thank you again, as always, for joining us on the Bearcat Brunch as we close out the regular season. Cincinnati finishes the regular season 9-3. We'll be looking to see what bowl game they go to and who the opponent is. So with that, thank everybody. Have a great Sunday, Cincinnati.